What was the Great Compromise? The Great Compromise, which was also known as the Connecticut Compromise, was basically an agreement between large states and small states regarding how much power each state would have under the U.S. Constitution. There was more to that, though. This occurred in 1787. The Congress was debating among delegates on how each state could have representation in Congress. This ended up leading up to a two-chambered Congress. Back in the 1780s, the United States was going through some terrible times. It gave them an inadequate government. They failed to regulate trade, drafted soldiers, and imposed taxes, with also failing to end the slavery issue. The results in the Great Compromise was many, but the main one was a change in the American government structure. It was basically working out the interests of larger states and smaller states, which caused to hit a balance between proportional and general representation. The Great Compromise gave larger states representation in the lower house according to population. Most delegates, however, wanted proportional representations, while the smaller states' delegates decided they would rather want no constitution than having Madison's proposed system.
Of the Compromise. The original writer of the Compromise was a senator named Henry Clay, introduced on January 29, 1850. And it meant to seek a compromise and avert a crisis between North and South. The Fugitive Slave Act, as a part of the compromise, was amended, and the slave trade in Washington, D.C. was abolished. The Compromise of 1850 consists of 5 laws passed in September of 1850 that dealt with the issue of slavery and territorial expansion. In 1849, California requested permission to enter the Union as a free state, potentially upsetting the balance between the free and slave states in the U.S. Senate. Senator Henry Clay introduced a series of resolutions on January 29, 1850, in an amendment to seek a compromise and avert a crisis between North and South. As a part of Compromise of 1850, the Fugitive Slave Act was amended, and the slave trade in Washington, D.C. was abolished.
The Virginia Plan. James Madison gave the idea of the Virginia Plan. His purpose of doing this was to propose a structure to a government to the Philadelphia Convention. This plan was created by the Constitutional Convention gathering in Philadelphia. To go over the Articles of Confederation. There are 3 branches of government: the legislative, executive, and judicial. They need either large or small states to represent the legislature.
The New Jersey Plan was a proposal for a structure of the United States government presented by William Paterson at the Constitutional Convention on June 15, 1787. The plan was created in response to the Virginia Plan, which was called for 2 houses of Congress, both elected with the appointment according to population. The less populous states were adamantly opposed to giving most control of the national government to more populous states, and so proposed an alternative plan that would have kept the 1 per vote state representation under 1 legislative body. From the Articles of Confederation, the New Jersey Plan was opposed by James Madison and Edmund Randolph.
The Senate and House of Representatives. Congress is the legislative arm of government, and its job is to make laws. Congress is made up of houses, which are the Senate, which is the upper, and the House of Representatives, which is lower. Each state has 2 senators in the Senate. The number of representatives a state has is determined by its population. While the House and Senate are similar, there are still some differences. The House has to include 435 members serving 2-year terms, controls time of debate, admissibility of amendments. Committees always consider legislation first, must be 25 years of age when seated, not voting, must be a citizen of the U.S. for more than 7 years, and the debate is limited to only an hour. Now the Senate has 100 members, rotating every six-year terms. Referral decisions easily challenged. Must be at least 30 or over 30 years of age. Must be a U.S. citizen for at least 9 or over 9 years. And has few limits of debate or amendments.